Now, before we start, it is time, of course, for me to bring our guests in, starting with this fine young fellow here. Mr. Sinclair, how are you, son?
I'm good, mate. Big up, throw me on.
All good, all good. And I see that with the Euros over, you are already looking forward to the start of the upcoming season.
Yep.
If only I could be as excited as you are about our transfer activity. I mean, like you might have been following everything. I'm not too sure that you are really that excited, though, are you? Well, I mean, aren't you going to say anything?
I am excited, yeah.
Okay, we'll see what happens. And before I bring some other guests in, let's, of course, introduce one of our big friends, of course, Chelsea fan. Hanno's not here yet, but you do have me, and he will be coming on. And, of course, before I bring on Hanno, we've got another guest. I've already mentioned him. His own cricket channel, of course, Mr. B Chats England Cricket, and he is here, obviously, to talk about all things England, but also some other international cricket news. Steve, good to have you on, and I love that coat you got on. Wonderful.
Yeah, mate.
Three lines on your chest. I know you won't go wrong.
Yeah, but this is for the cricket, not the football. Because
where did you get that, Mr. D?
Oh, I just got it online, mate. I got it online. So
you got it online.
Like singlet, you know, the thing they wear, this like the training and that. They wear it for the training and stuff. Cinch and all that.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I suppose you could say that with regard to England's series against the West Indies and the women against New Zealand, it is a bit of a cinch, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, see, minus the old tash there, Mr. T. Looking good, mate. Looking good.
Actually, I do not like the way I look without the tash. The only reason why I'm taking it off is because I want to try and help it grow a bit thicker. It doesn't really grow the way I want it to grow, but that's another story altogether, another story for another day. And, of course, we do have our host with the most. For some reason, I think he's mute, but he will be joining us, of course. And he's going to have a lot to say, of course, on the topics that we are going to discuss. Now, obviously, we are going to start with the England men. Of course, they knocked the wind out of the Windies in the first test. And, Steve was covering that almost extensively for his channel. And we are going to talk a little bit about this. And we were talking about the selection for the second test against the West Indies with Jimmy Anderson now retired. But not exactly the best selection in Steve's book and also in my book. Mark Wood being called up to effectively replace Jimmy Anderson. And there is going to be some talk as to who will actually come in. Steve, you and I have already said our piece, but Ollie, I'd like to ask you, are you happy with the decision to bring Mark Wood back in? Because in recent times, whenever he's played for England, he's looked a little bit wayward and slightly off the pace. And we all know that he's exceptionally quick and can bowl very fast. But when he strays in his line, he can be very, very expensive. What say you on this?
Yeah, I mean, he's a decent bowler. It's good to have him, but I don't know, maybe not the best of batters. Yeah. I haven't really got much to say on it because I haven't really been watching recently. Yeah, I don't.
I disagree. I think he's actually quite good with a bat, to be honest.
Is he?
He does give it a smack when he comes in. You know, he don't. You know, he don't die wondering when he comes in with a bat. So unlike some of the top order and middle order, he tries to do something and smack it around. So. Which is good to see, but the thing is, what I don't like is that why is he here? And I'm sorry, Ollie, for cutting in, mate, because I know it was obviously Manny was talking to you about it. But I just feel strongly about all this. Why is he back here? And he's not bowling that well. Why, we got these two younger players coming in. Pennington and Atkinson's already played. We might have Potts in as well. Why bring in another one that's already been there? And I'm not saying he's a has-been at all, because he's still I think he's early 30s still, but he's still got a little bit to add and a little bit to bring to it. But for the time being, we're not going back to them. We're doing the experimental. So what was the point of bringing him back? I don't get it. I really don't.
Absolutely. And of course, we got this article here from Cricinfo saying that the selection has in fact been confirmed. Wood effectively replaces Anderson, so there's no room for either Pennington or Potts, and that really is enough to make me feel very angry indeed. He wasn't available for the Lord's Test, having only just returned to the country after the completion of the T20 World Cup. He claimed only 3 wickets in 5 appearances and was exceptionally expensive and wayward. And he hasn't even played a first-class game for Durham this season. So you have to wonder, what is the wisdom in bringing him in when he hasn't really been, warmed up, as it were. Of course, he was added to the squad, and he'll go back into the 11. And, of course, it'll be the first time that England have played a home test without either Anderson or Broad in their 11 since 2012, and the second since 2007. And, of course, other news is that Anderson has now accepted his new role as England's bowling coach. I really don't know if that means that his first-class career is now over. I think it might be, which is a shame because, he was bowling well for Lancashire, and I'm not too sure that it would have been the nicest thing for him to have for him to sort of abandon them like that, especially if they're willing to let him continue to play and pass his wisdom on to Lancashire's bowlers. We'll probably find that out a bit later about that, but so that means that Potts and Pennington are going to have to wait. These 2 Ps have effectively been thrown out of the pod. It's horrible. Now, Potts, of course, had 23 wickets in his first 6 tests in 2022 and 2023, but he hasn't featured for England since the Ireland Test at Lord's last June, and Pennington hasn't even made his debut yet. And one reason why I think they wanted to select Wood is because they saw Gus Atkinson's success at Lord's when he claimed 12 at 106, the 4th best by a debut in Test history, and the joint best by an Englishman in Test history. Shoaib Bashir didn't bowl in the Lord's Test, but he does retain his place, a move which should suggest that spin can come into it. He never even bowled in the Lord's Test either. And so this particular suggestion of even bringing Wood back in is rather silly, because now you've already got an express bowler in Atkinson, and you've already got Chris Wokes, who's your senior seamer. Why would you want to bring Mark Wood in? Why don't you bring Potts back into the picture if he's done that well, especially? Why wouldn't you want to give Pennington a chance? And so when is Pennington going to get an opportunity? It's like, you dangle a carrot and then you take it away from them. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. If I was at Pennington, I'd say pay off. I would leave. I would walk out, because that's treating him wrong. And he's thinking now he's going to get a debut and play for England, and now they're spoiling his chances, and it's terrible. I hate all this. Why do they do this? Why do they go back on what they want to do? I don't get them at all. It's like England football as well. It's the same. They go back on something they should be doing, moving forward, and then they go backwards again. It's mad. I just want to know where the brains are. I think they've lost them somehow.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to Anderson, of course, he is pretty. I think they sort of want to keep him involved in that England bubble as someone who, until recently, played and who can supposedly impart his wisdom. But then, why again having 2 express fast bowlers in Atkinson and Wood might not necessarily be the way to go. And so, who would you get to try to provide swing for the ball? And we'll take a look and see if there are any comments over here.
Yeah, Zane's got one now, I think, about Ollie Robinson, apparently.
Yeah, Wood definitely good with the bat. And saying Ollie Robinson could have been a better choice. And maybe there is some wisdom to that. Paul Farbrace came out not too long ago and said that, the England selectors have been a little bit too quick to, just throw him away. Other people in the media have said that Ollie deserves this, and a lot of people have been very harsh in their criticism, saying he's a wasted talent, he doesn't apply himself. But
that's true. He's a fitness worry as well. Get too many injuries. He's not fit enough, unfortunately.
Yeah. Agreed. But we're going to see what happens, though. And as far as Pennington is concerned, I would like to think that he will still very much be a part of the plans for the rest of the summer, because after these 2 tests, they do have to play against Sri Lanka. So, the express pace of Atkinson and maybe Wood will be a bit of a treat. Obviously, Josh Tongue, or Josh Tong, as it's pronounced, will come back into the reckoning. But Pennington shouldn't feel, too disheartened. And I do get what you're saying. I would be absolutely angry. And the selection of wood is absolutely blameless. I mean, you're knocking on it, as it were. That's why I said knocking on wood. But it's absolutely ridiculous. Ollie, do you want to say something?
About what?
About what we were talking.
No. That's fine.
Okay. Well, and some more comments. Chelsea fan agreeing with me. And of course, this is a nice facts, Mr. B. And this is, of course, a nice segue from this particular comment, of course. And Zion saying Wokes can possibly swing the ball if needed. Maybe he could. Maybe the only problem is if he does swing the ball, it'll be very interesting to see who actually opens the bowling. It could very well be Atkinson and Wokes who opens, and then Wood can come in maybe as a first change bowler. But then Wood is going to have to be really, really careful with his accuracy, and I really do not want to see him, getting completely wayward. And Hanno, of course, will be joining in. He's just sent a message, and he will be saying something about that. And so that is, of course, something that we can look back on. But obviously, now we have to talk about the women. England ladies beating New Zealand again. And of course, if we take a look at the series between them, Steve obviously was covering that for his channel, and I was also a part of it. They've already beaten New Zealand in the 3-match ODI series 3-0, and they lead the 5-match 2020 series 4-0. The White Ferns are facing another whitewash, and Ollie, I don't know if you have anything to say about this, but Steve, maybe you can get the ball rolling. I think they're just lacking in confidence of the New Zealanders, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I'll just go back quickly to that thing about Wokes there, Manny. He's another one. I don't know why they're sticking with him. We know what he can do. We've seen enough of him. Why don't we move on now and see these others? Why are we going back? I know they're on about experience with the younger players, but there's still plenty of other experience there. If you've got Anderson as a coach or whatever now, which he is supposed to be, right? Why do you need these others in? I would have also they're bringing Wood back. So why? Yeah, just bring him back. Get Wokes out of it. Let's see these others. I want to see Pennington. I want to see Potts again. I want to see them, what they're capable of doing. And why they can now, why they can experiment. Why are they not doing it?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
I mean, I'd keep Wokes in the lineup, but I wouldn't bring Wood back even if you paid me. Because, there is some wisdom about, having to have a good blend of youth and experience, and with Anderson now gone, that's the best part of 188 tests out of the picture. So Wokes will have a role to play, and he has, of course, spoken about how he would like to be, be a part of the 2025-26 Ashes series, and I think he will probably look to try and keep himself in good condition for that. As far as Mark Wood is concerned, there's a part of me that does believe that McCullum and Key and Stokes will tell him, Woody, mate, you've got to get your line and length back in order. So they're starting to show a little bit of ruthlessness. The only issue that I have is if you want to be ruthless, you have to be consistent. And I'm sure, regardless of whatever sport it is, whether it's cricket or football, I'm sure both of you boys can agree with me on that.
Yeah, but obviously getting back to that women, as we have moved on to that, I think that was brilliant. Yeah, as you say, we done it on my channel, talked about it all, and I thought it was brilliant. And they're looking great, the England women, and long may it continue. I just feel that they've got options everywhere, whereas you can't always say that with the men now. With the women, there's just so many you can choose, and they're going to do something. Whoever comes in always seems to perform. So, it's so much different. As you said about New Zealand, though, their confidence must be shattered. because, you know, they got some decent players, though, New Zealand. I mean, okay, you go with the main ones like Susie Bates and Sophie Devine are the main two. But there are others. You got the Kerr sisters. They're very good. I think, is it Carson? I think is quite good. Plimmer, Rowe. They got some, you know, good bowlers as well. Decent bowlers there. So, you know, they've got talent there. You know, who is no one. They've got talent. So it's just about bringing them through because it is transitional still with New Zealand. But, you know, I'd like to see them, maybe if they could get consolation, I wouldn't mind that because, you know, that we know England are good enough. And even if we do lose one, so what? You know, we won the series anyway. So it doesn't matter to me.
Absolutely. But I'm sure we would like a whitewash because, you know, when we toured New Zealand, we should have had whitewashes in both the ODI and T20 series. But on both occasions, New Zealand were allowed to pick a win off us. But this time around, we've shown some ruthlessness in being able to rescue lost situations. But there is always going to be some room for improvement. And I think it's fair to say that the New Zealand women, as you and I have talked about, Steve, will have to go through a period of, transition. A lot of, old faces will have to be phased out. And a new team will have to be built.
Oh, yeah.
But again, and Chelsea fans saying England women doing better than the England men just now. Yeah. Well, they've certainly done better than the England men in the limited overs scheme of things. But hey, our test team is still pretty healthy. Yeah. I just hope that Mark will get his act together. Knock on wood. And but exactly. It is a decent time to be an England cricket fan. But our limited overs teams are now going to have to get their acts together, and there will be some changes in that. And of course, we're going to come back to Jimmy a little bit, but obviously to becoming a player turned coach, because Hanno said that he wanted to offer his perspective on this. Now, of course, now we move to our Ashes rivals, Australia. Now, they obviously seem to be willing to move forward by selecting some younger players already. And there was one older player who was cheekily saying that maybe he'd be happy to be in contention for the Champions Trophy upcoming. But George Bailey ensuring that it wouldn't be a wonderful life in that regard. Saying that, no, Warner's retired. He's no longer a part of our plans. And however, for the likes of Glenn Maxwell and Mitchell Starc, they are still more or less still a part of the picture, even if they're not necessarily involved now. And Warner did, of course, when he said that the ODI World Cup could have marked the end of his career in that format, and personally, I thought that would have been the best way to end it, really, with a World Cup win. He did repeat his call about the Champions Trophy in the recent social media post after the end of the T20 World Cup. Of course, as you know, Australia failed to make the semi-finals, so it wasn't a very nice way for him to end it. But, of course, as I mentioned, Bailey saying Warner is fully retired. And while we can appreciate his legacy, we will not go back to him. And, it's about commending him for an incredible career across all three formats. But as we move forward, he will not be there in Pakistan. And of course, a related news item is that Connolly and Fraser McGurk have been selected. So McGurk was initially dropped for the T20 squad, but for the World Cup. But he is now back with Warner out. And Bailey's saying, "You never know when Bull's joking." Bull Warner. I've heard of a Bull Durham, but not a Bull Warner. I'm going to have to find out where that came from. He's just stirring the pot a little bit. He's had a wonderful career. Can't celebrate it enough. And I think as time goes by, his legacy of what he's done for Australia, and we reflect back on that, the legend of a player is only going to continue to grow. But as far as this team goes and the journey to transition to some different players, in his case, across all three formats, is going to be very exciting. Bailey also added that the selectors were not going to move on from other players around white ball cricket, even though they shifted focus to the future. particularly with the T20 squad for the Tours of Scotland and England, which featured a call-up for Cooper Connolly and Jake Fraser-McGurk following the Super 8 exit in the West Indies. Matthew Wade has been left out, and he's probably, he might have played his last game for Australia, but that hasn't been made official. Mitchell Starc and Glenn Maxwell have been rested from the T20 internationals, but there haven't been discussions on their longer-term future in the format ahead of the upcoming World Cup in India and Sri Lanka. Australia have 9 T20s left this year, with 3 apiece against Scotland, England, and Pakistan. And they don't play the format again until next July in the West Indies, which begins to run a 17 games, according to the Future Tours program before the next World Cup. Bailey saying, I don't think there's anyone who's not there that we put a line through permanently besides David. This is the way we're going with the squad. If there are opportunities of the rise or gaps at different points, there's nothing to say that Matthew Wade might not come back. But at this point, we're excited about giving Josh Inglis a run as wicketkeeper. And the next T20 World Cup, like the Ashes, is in 2026. So there might be some more changes than what we're seeing in the squad. But specifically to Starc and Maxwell, we haven't had any conversations about where they think their T20 journey may finish. Certainly for Glenn and Mitchell, the Champions Trophy is very much on the horizon. Also a very important tournament for those guys. And as for Mitchell Starc in particular, he should have a huge summer. Clearly, some of the decisions made around this series are around prioritizing and getting guys fit and ready and right for what should be a really big summer. And as far as ending players, seeing where guys might finish up, we haven't really had those conversations, he said. So reflecting on the T20 World Cup, Bailey did say that there was a lingering frustration that had fallen apart for Australia in barely 36 hours with their defeats to Afghanistan and India having been unbeaten until that point. Still think that the T20 side, the foundation of it, is a really, really good team. He was especially, effusive of Mitchell Marsh's captaincy. Bit of a surprise there. Didn't feel like we completely needed to rip it up and start from scratch. But it's also going to be a great opportunity to explore some other guys. And I think we have an echo. Do we have someone in the building? Yep, we've got our host with the most, who is back. Yeah, and we're going to get your opinions on Anderson in a minute, but we're just talking about Australia right now. Yeah. So Cooper is one who hasn't had an opportunity. That's Cooper Connolly, that is. And there's a number of guys who've been on some tours and played 1 or 2 games, but haven't had a great deal of opportunity. So it's exciting for them to see them get a bit more of an opportunity and start to work out how they can fit into the team or the squad. And as I mentioned, he did praise Mitchell Marsh's captaincy. He will be leading both squads on the UK tour, with Cummins missing the whole trip to work on conditioning ahead of the home summer. I do believe Cummins will, in fact, be playing in America. And Bailey saying the way Mitchell Marsh captained during the T20 World Cup was excellent. He was clear on how he wanted to lead the team. He was as disappointed as anyone that we didn't get to the end goal that everyone was hoping to achieve. But when you look back at his early success rate as a captain across T20, he's done a really good job. So, Hanno, now that you're here, we're going to start with you, yeah? Obviously, the message from Bailey is that with regard to Australia and their selection for these upcoming games to prepare for the Champions Trophy and also the T20 World Cup, they've gone for youth. Obviously, Cooper Connolly, Jake Fraser-McGurk, and they've dropped quite a few names. Matthew Wade, Matthew Short's remaining home for the birth of his first child, but he will play in the ODIs against England. Mitchell Starc and Glenn Maxwell are also missing the T20s, but they will join for the ODIs, and there has been some talk of some of these players possibly being phased out of the T20 team while continuing to possibly play in the one-dayers. And other names are Xavier Bartlett, Spencer Johnson, and Nathan Ellis are part of the pace attack. Cameron Green and Aaron Hardy are included, and of course Josh Inglis will replace Matthew Wade with the gloves in T20s. As far as the ODI squad is concerned, Alex Carey returns into the squad. He had lost his place in the 11 during last year's World Cup. And obviously the new names that have come in obviously brings about a great deal of excitement. But as we've mentioned, David Warner is no longer in the picture. And there will, of course, be some talk in the coming days about the futures of the likes of Stark and Maxwell and others. So you might be impressed, obviously, with the decision of the Aussies to move forward, going along the lines of youth. And certainly for Fraser McGurk, you have to think he deserves his chance.
No, Fraser McGurk definitely deserves his chance, and I think so. So does a few of the other guys. Who look at Aaron Hardy. He had a great season with the Perth Scorchers. I think it was him when we did the watch long play the Sydney Sixers. Absolutely destroyed us. Scored like 70 something of 30 balls. So yeah, I like what Australia are thinking. They have got a few old heads there. Mitchell Stark, even Josh Hazelwood is getting on now. So integrating them as soon as possible is the key. Especially after a disappointing World Cup, you want to rejuvenate the squad, get that feeling back in. So I really like that decision, and I think they've got some great couple of players. They are hardy, like I mentioned. Nathan Ellis, really like him as a bowler, tall bowler. Knows you know what you are getting with him. And then a few of the other guys as well. In terms of just raw ability, how they can impact the game. So looking at the T20 squad, let me just have a look. Even Xavier Bartlett, he had a great big bash. Same with Spencer Johnson. Spencer Johnson didn't start off well in the IPL, but he had a few good games. He's another one I think personally. He's a great talent that should be able that we should be looking at. So they've got some great young players in there. So why not, man? Why not?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for that. And Steve, I think you'll be at least happy that Australia have done what they did, unlike England, who are going back to the tried but probably not so much trusted Mark Wood.
Yeah, well, this is the perfect way of doing things. This is what England should be doing. You move on. You know they're planning ahead. They're looking to the future. They're also looking for the test, the Ashes. I would think so. You know they know what they're doing. I wish England did because we'll be behind them again, and we'll end up going over there and be bloody have a whitewash again in Australia, no doubt. If we don't get our frigging act together and sort things out. But, you know, Australia, you know, they know what they're doing. They're not sitting there waiting. They're moving on. And that's what we should be doing. But it don't happen for some reason.
Yeah, I'm glad you agree. And Ollie, you've seen some of these youngsters who've been selected. Do you think that we should have reason to potentially fear them? We've got the one-dayers coming up against them after they play the Scots.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's good to, give the youngsters a go. The future of England, possibly. Maybe they could be, the next, Ben Stokes or one of our best good players. I know what it's like playing young players. Obviously, Arsenal have a young squads. I support Wales Rugby. They've used, a lot of young players before. Even England have used young players as well in football. But I always think it's good to give the young people a chance. But yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we can all sort of agree on that. And I've had to prepare this particular banner for Hanno because he did say that he had quite a lot to say about this. Now, of course, one thing. Hold on. Let me just introduce the topic. Yeah, but obviously, having concluded his legendary Test career, he's now, immediately taken up the reins of being the bowling coach. And while I do kind of see some wisdom in that to sort of try and keep him in the bubble, there is a part of me that maybe thinks it's counterproductive, because obviously one of my biggest thoughts is that it's going to come at a huge cost to Lancashire, because they would have liked to have thought that they would have him for a little bit longer. And if he's going to, I don't know if he's going to be able to combine the role of playing as, a first-class player with Lancashire while also working as a coach. Now, of course, in football, with a Welsh connection, Mr. Sinclair, a certain Mark Hughes managed the Welsh football team, but he was still good enough to continue playing for Blackburn Rovers and won a League Cup, beating Spurs in the final. I had to mention that. But this interesting article really, brings a new perspective, and we're going to talk about this, obviously. Some were short, some were wide, some were too fast, some were too slow, considering that nearly 50 of Jimmy's 73 dismissals at Trent Bridge have been caught. It was a surprise to see him struggle with his accuracy during England's slip practice. But to be fair to him, he hasn't spent much time searching for edges while wearing a baseball mitt on his non-bowling hand. Tuesday, of course, marked the launch of James Anderson, Bowling Coach. A second volume of his England career begins, while some were still locked into the first. And as the now 41-year-old, soon to be 42, of course, got to grips with his new job after his enforced retirement came to pass at Lord's on Friday, you could forgive the awkwardness in a way. And this awkwardness is also going to be something here. Cards on the table, it felt quite weird, and this couldn't have been further from Friday's festivities. A dank cricket ground, empty but for the departing West Indies after their training session, and the constant buzzing of ground staff who were, locked in a battle with the weather for most of the day. Anderson was decked out in his England tracksuit, of course, and he was treated to a round of applause from in the team huddle from his now ex-teammates and new coaching colleagues. That came after Mark Wood, who replaces Anderson in the 11, was welcomed back into the group. Oh boy, weird doesn't even begin to describe it. And after finding his range with the cordon, Anderson moved over to a practice strip to oversee Wood and Dylan Pennington going through their paces. And this obviously, Hanno, was a big bone of contention for me and Steve, because we were angry at how Pennington has effectively been treated. The rest of the seamers, Matthew Potts, who has also been overlooked for the second test, Matthew Potts' side, who was batting, came over to bowl under Anderson's gaze. A grim shower, one of the last scheduled for the week, sent them all inside, where Anderson's watching brief continued without hurling or bowling a ball at a batsman. But the question is, should Anderson even be here? As blunt as it may seem, there are a few different strands to the question, but it's worth focusing on two in particular. You give a legend like him a send-off, you also have to give him his space. And either for a few more Guinnesses, of course, or Castle Lager, as is quite popular in South Africa, as would have been the case. But, he's not South African. He's proudly English, and to scope out what's next. And to be fair for Anderson, his motivation for assuming the role so soon after retirement is to see if he likes the fit and if he fits the team and the ethos. And this isn't simply about justifying what remains of his ECB central contract or handing him a consolation gig. This is also, ironically, about building for the next Ashes. But the spikiest strand is, how can England really learn to live without Anderson, or grow beyond Anderson, or even simply move on while he's still there? Reminds me of a classic song lyric, how am I supposed to remember you when you're not even going to let me forget? And for all the knowledge that there is to tap into, his presence represents a glory of old that is incredibly intimidating to newcomers. Literally 4 days ago, or 4 or 5, I would say, he was turning Josh De Silva inside out for his 704th Test wicket. Can a new attack grow in his shade? And is it even possible to fill the void of his personality when that personality still remains? How is Anderson going to feel when some of the tenets by which he has lived are not quite openly dismissed, but now frowned upon? Again, let's not forget that only a few days ago he was bowling in the Test. That ultimately is something that could possibly get ironed out. They're obviously going to, talk a little bit about it. But the challenge is not so much for Anderson, but the core of this England team that has grown in prominence during the tenure of McCullum and Stokes. And as they head into a home test without either Anderson or Stuart Broad for the first time since both were rested in 2012, the second time since 2007, that they will truly take the reins over the evolution in this team. Basically, the evolution, I should say. Zach Crawley, Ollie Pope, Ben Duckett, and Harry Brook have emerged as respected heads in the dressing room, as much through performances as personality, although Steve can back me up when I say that there should be big doubts about Ben Duckett and whether or not he can play. And obviously, Pope's form hasn't exactly been too good either, although he did, at least to his credit, get a half century in that test. Since the start of 2023, the quartet are among England's top 5 run scorers, with old reliable Joe Root leading the way. The growth of these top-order batsmen can also be measured in the field. The confidence and the lack of chopping and changing has improved England's catching by and large. Their success percentage of 78.7% in the above period is better than Australia's and only 0.2 off India. They are sure of themselves to either offer Stokes advice or traffic themselves when they sense a hunch, and are not afraid to do so without asking their captain's permission. At a time in this team's life cycle when the bowling attack has lost 355 caps in the space of 2 retirements in consecutive tests, home tests that is, such assurance in the batting group is now a necessity. It's definitely a changing of the guard, said Crawley on Tuesday. With 45 appearances, Crawley is now, of course, the 4th most capped player in the team. Root, Stokes, Wokes, and now Crawley. And of course, he debuted in 2015, and of course, Wood debuted in 2015, 4 years before the opening batter. And Wood only has 34 caps, but the injuries have not really been his friend. Crawley's journey, of course, at this point has been riddled with character-building bumps. England's leading run scorer in the Ashes and the tour to India has emerged as a front runner as a potential successor to Stokes. Not many would have made that leap when he finished the summer with an average of 23. But Crawley now carries a healthy amount of responsibility. In terms of senior players, he says it's weird in the environment, a very tight-knit group, and we're all encouraged to add to the environment, help the environment. Even Dylan coming in with the squad at Lords, you're encouraged to help everyone around you. We all have that responsibility. I have a responsibility to my teammates to help them, but that's across the board, to be honest. I don't feel like more than a leader than anyone else. It's reiterated to us all the time. We look after each other. We're a close-knit group, and it's my role to help people around me, and I'm sure they feel the same. I suppose I can have that impact on people, but we all do in the group, and that's why we're tight-knit. With Gus Atkinson, of course, being the 5th player to take a 5-wicket haul on debut under McCullum and Stokes, backs up Crawley's words. His match haul of 12 for 106 suggests Anderson's presence didn't impede him at all. But we're about to enter a period that, much like England's search for an opener after Andrew Strauss's retirement, it could involve a lot of trial and error. And so Crawley will have to help the bowling group through whatever growing pains emerge. Anderson might only be around for the summer. And there is a lot of wisdom to this article on Cricinfo because you always have to be wary about trying to get people to want to, come back into the picture, having announced their retirement in a blaze of glory. And the expectation was that they would have been entitled to put their feet up and enjoy, their time off, and they would have deserved it. And one of the reasons why, you don't see too many of these big personalities coming back into the picture as coaches is because the team has to learn to move on effectively without them. And I just wonder if, in as much as they feel as though they'd like to pay homage to him in a way, it's probably redundant. And this shouldn't also impact his first-class career because I would definitely like to see him go back and play for Lancashire. And so there is a part of me that thinks that it's well-meaning, but in the end, I'm not too sure it will be, beneficial, and we will have to see how it works. But Hannah, you wanted to speak about this? Go right ahead.
Well, some may agree, some may not, but this is kind of some sort of conspiracy theory. I think because the Anderson news, like when it came out that he's retiring, it came out like out of the blue. We didn't expect it. Like you are thinking, okay, West Indies, you will play West Indies, yeah. I would say it was even more unexpected than Broad's one, I would say. Of course, different situations. I think, I don't want to say I think personally, England maybe forced him to retire because because they want to move on or breed new players. But then he was like, but I don't want to move on right now. So they like, okay, if you can retire from playing, but we will just offer you the coaching job. That's what I think. And yeah, I think they basically forced him into the coaching job. I think he didn't want to retire. They said retire. Maybe it's a bit far fetched, maybe, but I think that is my opinion.
Do you think that's a way of keeping him sweet? You know, making sure he was, you know, oh look, sorry, we made you retire when you didn't want to, but we're doing this to help you, make sure you don't leave us feeling angry and upset.
Yeah.
Because you're still with us, but doing a different role now as a coach.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No.
But here's the thing though, and Steve, you can back me up on this. You know, for a long time, Charlotte Edwards was obviously one of our most iconic England cricketers at the time. She was leading the team to world championships in the ODI format and the T20 format. But when she was pretty much forced to retire as captain, she never even got the chance to make history by being the first batswoman to score 6,000 ODI runs. In the end, I think it was the Indian captain Mithali Raj who got that. But the then coach actually said at the time that by making the decision to get rid of to ask Edwards to step aside with no sentiment involved, she wasn't even allowed to stay as a player under Heather Knight, and he thought that her presence would definitely be intimidating, and that is what I'm reminded of here. So I don't believe that you can necessarily keep Anderson sweet in that regard, because coaching will never really compare to playing, and especially given that he took 8 wickets in his last game for Lancashire, and also after a difficult start was able to somehow end up becoming among the wickets with 4 in the match. I think you make a decision like that, and the impression that I got from Anderson was that he would have effectively been okay with it. And if he wanted to continue playing, he could always go back to Lancashire and enjoy 1 or 2 Indian summers there. So why would you bring him back into the picture as a bowling coach? Why not consider someone else like a Stuart Broad, who retired a little bit earlier?
They didn't offer him it, did they? So they offered Anderson it. Why not Broad?
Exactly. Exactly, and I just wonder if by asking him to continue as a coach so soon after retirement, I don't know, is he going to have some sort of kind of I can't call it PTSD, but certainly some triggers and negative thoughts about maybe I should still be playing. And as football fans, we all remember how Glenn Hoddle would always try to give the impression that he was really good back in the day and still better than some of the players by, being one of the best technicians. But when you do that, you just lose the respect of your players. Sometimes it's always best to take a bit of a clean break and, put your feet up and then decide what you want to do. And if Anderson was so willing to, become the coach again, they could have offered it to him the following summer after he had taken a rest, or maybe that way he could have had some clarity about the whole situation. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, as you say, the thing with Charlotte Edwards as well, I think that was pretty disrespectful, what they did with her, to be honest. And because she was great, she was superb. What she done with the England women's team, captain them and won them so many things. And, I just think the way it was handled with Jimmy, I think it was disrespectful. He didn't want to move on. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think you see probably in that test matches, he was looking at like he wasn't quite at his best now at times. He was still doing it a bit, yeah. He ain't totally lost it. He was still really good. But, you know, he wasn't the Jimmy Anderson of old, was he? As far as I'm concerned.
No. Like, it was, you could see the age was on the wrong side. But I just feel like with Bro, there was almost a sense of a build up, like you could feel it. Could feel, yeah. It's probably gonna go now. He broke that record of Warner. He got his, I think, 600 wickets. In that test, so you could feel, probably he's given it all. Go out on a high. This, it's like he retires.
Yeah, I personally have no problems with the decision to ask him to retire because, you know, he had already gotten his landmark 700th wicket. I know that he was a few away from getting 1,000 international wickets, but I think he's finished his career 9 short of that. So he's now 10 behind Warren, and obviously a mammoth 350 odd behind Muralitharan. But you could see that he wasn't quite the same, and so he had to. It was time for him to go. And had he taken more wickets in the Ashes, you know, there's a part of me that thinks that he would have stayed on a little bit. He would have, you know, certainly had the wind in his sails. But then you can't expect a 40-odd-year-old bowler to continue doing the work. And the West Indies found that out, obviously, when, you know, Curtly Ambrose and Courtney Walsh played on into their late 30s. It was very difficult for them to be replaced for a long period of time. And so once they make a clean break from it, and of course, bear in mind that when Ambrose and Walsh retired, they weren't back in the scene for a very long time. That was the only way that the West Indies could start to move on from them and try and find someone new. So I would actually have, you know, I wouldn't have given Jimmy the coaching job. I would have allowed him to, you know, take some time to reflect on everything.
Not straight away. Don't give it straight away.
Yeah, exactly. Reflect on an amazing career and try and think of giving something back to Lancashire, continuing to play and keeping yourself fulfilled in that respect. Because when you've just retired, moving into coaching isn't really the best thing. I know that some people can hack it, but you know, the circumstances are always going to be different. Ollie, I'm sorry that you feel that we've ignored you, but what do you think about all of this?
I think it's a bit too soon for him to go into coaching. Yeah, I think, you know, just retire as a player, and I kind of agree with you as well. He could have maybe gone on. I think he should have played on a bit longer, maybe, but he is getting a bit older now, isn't he? How old is he? Is he 40 now or something?
41.
41, yeah. So that is quite old for a, you know, sports player. But he had a good career, and yeah, I guess maybe he just wants to stay on with England and be a coach. Maybe that's what his plan was, to stay on at England and be a coach. So, you know, people have done that before. Cesc Fabregas recently, when he became the manager of the team he played for after he retired. And, you know, plenty of other players manage teams when they've retired or, you know, they've not had a job. They've been retired for a while. But yeah, maybe just he wanted to stay on England, and yeah, I think it's a decent appointment because, you know, he's a great cricketer, so maybe he'll do well as a coach as well. So yeah, we'll wait and see. But yeah, maybe he just wants to stay on at England a bit longer.
Okay, well, all I can say is good luck to Jimmy. He is going to need it, and I only hope that he won't, whatever happens, he won't regret jumping into that too soon, because as wise men sing, only fools rush in. And one person who hasn't exactly rushed in here is Gautam Gambhir. Thank heavens for Little Batsman, that famous song. GG, Gautam Gambhir is now the new India coach, having replaced Rahul Dravid. And, you know, obviously he's got some very big shoes to fill with the legendary Indian batsman, of course, having ended his coaching stint with a world title, a very well-deserved world title, having seen it elude him twice as a player and a coach. But so obviously Gambier comes into this particular coach having done some work in the IPL. He was a mentor with the Kolkata Knight Riders. And this is an interesting article over here, and I've got this one by Shashank Kishore from Cricinfo. I'll probably just skim through some of this. I don't want to go too long, but it will be interesting in many ways. And he was a pretty good batsman, of course. He was a part of that 2011 squad, which won. Now, more than 6 years since playing his last competitive game, he takes over as India's head coach at the age of 42, the second youngest Indian after Kapil Dev in the late 1990s to be given the job. Competitive on the field, feisty and outspoken off it. He takes charge of an Indian side that qualified for the finals of the last WTC and ODI World Cup in 2023 and just won the T20 World Cup in 2024. And of course, his first series in charge is the White Ball Tour of Sri Lanka. Obviously, the Indian side that's playing in Zimbabwe right now is very much a makeshift young team under a different coach. And there'll be two test series at home against Bangladesh and New Zealand, series, as I should say, part of the ongoing WTC. They're currently top of the WTC and well placed to make the final. The first big one, of course, is the 5-test tour year. India won their previous 2 test series in Australia, and this contest could be crucial to the final shaping of the table. He hasn't coached a domestic or international team previously in List A or first-class cricket, but that's not unusual for the Indian team because Ravi Shastri and Anil Kumble didn't have prior coaching experience when they took charge. Although Shastri was a lot more successful and Kumble tried his best, but probably couldn't get the team to really, vibe with him. Obviously, Gambier getting the job on the back of his successful stints as mentor of 2 IPL franchises. Under his guidance, the Lucknow Super Giants qualified for the playoffs in their first 2 IPL seasons. And then, of course, he oversaw the Knight Riders' run to the title in the previous campaign. So his pathway in that job is different to Rahul Dravid, who has spent years as the head of the National Cricket Academy and coaching India's age group and A teams. Now, as far as tough calls are concerned, Sharma, Kohli and Ravindra Jadeja have retired from T20, so the transition's already underway. And the ODI and Test setups are stable for the near future. And the question of transition may only arise after the Champions Trophy and the World Test Championship in 2025. He has been critical in his role as a media professional of senior players resting between high-profile assignments. But with his tenure likely to run until the 2027 ODI World Cup, he will have to work with a workload management plan to have India's best players at their fittest for the most important assignment. And after winning that World Cup recently, Rohit thanked Dravid in a poignant note for leaving all of his accolades and achievements at the door and making the players feel comfortable enough to say just about anything to him. And this is an example, of course, of how instead of, going into a top job right away, you bide your time working with youngsters. And then when you come in, you don't come in with all of your qualifications and experience or legacy that you left as a player. You leave that at the door and start your role with no baggage. And so Rohit and Dravid were aligned in their strategies using data and analytics. But Gambier is a lot more instinct-driven. He isn't driven by data, as Hanno would say. So he's going to have to get on board with a major aspect of Rohit's captaincy, both with India and formerly with the Mumbai Indians. And, of course, having made their international debuts 4 years apart, Rohit and Gambier are also contemporaries. And they were India teammates between 2009 and 2013, and also opponents in the IPL up till 2018. So about Gambier and Kohli being in the same dressing room, obviously when they played for India, Gambier and Virat Kohli were, harmoniously working together. But in the IPL, they have had some on-field confrontations as captains and as mentor and a player. But in the recent campaign, they were seen to be more friendly with each other. And obviously just trying to get rid of media speculation and what happened, and effectively giving the impression that, you got to move forward. You can't live in the past. And for a person who's very aggressive in public, very controversial, is he going to be aggressive as coach? Well, apparently he's said to be one who sticks up for the people in his team. And he did have a run-in with the Delhi State coach over the handling of youngsters in the team. Very outspoken, but he does seem to be the type of person who will back his players and not throw them under the bus. And, obviously, when Gambier returned to the setup as mentor at KKR, he convinced Sunil Narayan to go back up the order and play without pressure. And the results were telling. He literally bashed the ball everywhere and ended up being the player of that entire tournament. And he also was a mediating influence between the head coach, obviously former India wicketkeeper Chandrakant Pandit, very old school, and a number of overseas players who found Pandit's approach unusual. So, on one hand, you could say that him getting the job based on his IPL credentials is a little bit, unorthodox. He certainly hasn't served a very big apprenticeship, but then neither have other coaches, really. It is going to be an interesting one, but how he connects and collaborates with the likes of Rohit and Virat Kohli, and also how he's able to marshal that T20 team will be very interesting. But Steve, let me ask you, do you have any hopes for Gambier as a coach? And then we'll come to Hanno.
Well, he was a great player, total legend of the game. I think some of them, I think he should be pretty good, because, I mean, you see people like Dravid and that, he was great as a coach, wasn't he? So I think Gambier has got, great experience. He's been there, seen it, done it with India. So I would say, yeah, I would think he will be a success. So, yeah, good luck to him,
Yeah, and Hanno, obviously, sorry about that, Steve, but thank you. And Hanno, obviously, the article, spoke at great length about Gambier's past as a cricketer and also his personality. Obviously, now with the T20 team in transition following the retirement of several of their stalwarts, it will be very interesting to see how Gambier will take the reins here. I'm not too sure how his approach will necessarily be. Will he be that type of person who'll stamp his mark? He can be obviously very supportive of his players, but again, it's still very early days. You obviously watch a great deal of IPL cricket. How do you see this one panning out for him?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think looking at the whole situation with coaches available that I can think of, maybe you choose the Gujarat Titans coach, but then again, he hasn't gotten it over the line except at one time. And how does he have that relationship with the fans? Really, I don't know. Gambia is a legend. If the fans will back him, no matter if he does good or bad, the fans will back him. Almost like Frank Lampard in his first season at Chelsea. Transfer window ban we had, and it was, we got him in. If he does good, he does good. If he does bad, he does bad. What can you expect? So yeah, he's gotten got a few good backroom stuff in. Apparently, Morco is going to be the bowling coach. So yeah, pretty interesting to see how his ideas will translate to these players. I know one thing for sure: unlike Mikel Arteta, these players will respect Gautam Gambhir. They will respect him. Unless you're maybe Virat Kohli, maybe, or even Rohit Sharma.
No,
who
the
has
article
one
mentioned
goal.
the article mentioned. I'm sorry to cut in. The article did mention that whatever spat that Kohli and Gambia might have had is pretty much all in the past. And he was of course a former India teammate of both Kohli and Sharma. So, sometimes, obviously, when it comes to playing for your nation, you're playing for something that's even bigger than you. So you are expected to, just shut your trap and put your ego to one side and say, absolutely. If only Ben White could heed that lesson.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that segues, of course, into our other Arsenal fan, Ollie. Are you looking forward to seeing how Gambia will do as India coach?
Yeah, I'm not really too bothered because obviously I'm an England fan, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yep. Well, I'm an England fan too, but obviously, with an Indian connection, it will be interesting to see how he does, and he will obviously, have a bit of a role to play. We do have a couple more topics to discuss, and of course, we'll just briefly touch on them. We've just gone over an hour, but as I mentioned, the Indian team that's currently playing in Zimbabwe is a bit of a makeshift team, captained, of course, by Shubman Gill, but they have had a few.
They lost to Zimbabwe, didn't they? They lost.
No, they actually beat. They just beat Zimbabwe.
What was that one they lost? Was it maybe it was ODI T20 or something? They lost, didn't they?
They played a 5-match T20 series. Zimbabwe won. Zimbabwe won the first one by 13 runs. Big credit to them. They dismissed India for a very paltry 102. But after that, it was a case of men against boys, and we're not going to talk too much about it because obviously, you don't really know too many of them. But I get the feeling that with Zimbabwe, and Hannah, you might be the best person placed to answer this. I'm not too sure that the player pool in Zimbabwe is really the best right now. And it's not really a good sign when, in players like the captain Sikandar Raza and also Craig Irvine, I don't know if he's retired, maybe he's still playing. But Sikandar Raza, the Pakistan-born Zimbabwe captain, is now well into the is well on the wrong side of his 30s. You just don't know how many years he will have left in the game, and I don't know if he's going to want to continue to carry the Zimbabwean team for much longer. And so when he retires, there does seem to be a good group of youngsters. Obviously, I think of the likes of Jonathan Campbell, who was whose father, of course, was the ex-Zimbabwe captain Alistair, a fine player there. And then, of course, you've got this chap named Faraz Akram, who was born in Saudi Arabia, I think, to Pakistani parents, of course. Other players, including Brian Bennett, Dion Myers, Clive Madande, Brandon Maruta, Richard Ngarawa, Tadi Wanashe Marumani, and Wellington Masakadza didn't play in the final one. So the big question here, and the big thing that we will just talk about, and we're not going to talk about the series, is can there be life after Captain Sikandar when he retires? And several of these players, when you take a look at how he might retire after the losses of Brendan Taylor and Craig Irvine and company, you just tend to think that might be the last of the truly great Zimbabwean cricketers. Do you fear for Zimbabwe cricket right now?
Yeah, I think it is a massive problem. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. What happens next for Zimbabwe? Especially after not qualifying for the T20 World Cup, Uganda qualifying ahead of them. Where do you go from that? Like, what do you because legends come and go. If they go now, what do you do next? I think, like for India's case, of Kohli and Sharma going, it's just getting the youngsters experience, of course. But you look at, for example, Australia, with David Warner now going, who's that next opener that's going to come through? So yeah, Zimbabwe, I think it's the end of the golden generation, as we like to call it. And yeah, India, the youngsters, it's an IPL team. I mentioned it prior, just before they start playing. It's a total IPL team, and we'll see what happens. So yeah.
Yeah, and one batsman who did himself some credit was Dion Myers, who had some pretty decent scores throughout the series. But Raza himself said that although Blessing Mazarabani bowled quite well, not too many other bowlers were able to take up the slack. And batting wise, there's still a lot of issues to be looked at. And I don't even know if Raza himself necessarily had the best of series. A good score in the fourth T20, 46 off 28, but you get the feeling that for him that was as good as it got. And then, of course, they were trounced by 10 wickets in that fourth T20 at Harare. And you just wonder that with these performances, you don't know if you just don't even know if you're going to retain the confidence and support of the Zimbabwean masses. Although it does still continue to have a fairly loyal following, and they do organise a few a few very limited overs tournaments in addition to their Logan Cup. But are they going to have adequate funding as well? That's going to be the problem.
No, that
Hannah?
Yeah, that is a big problem, the funding, because unlike the nations like us and India, especially India, funding is a problem for the smaller nations. So where do they get it? Like to take the grassroots players up to that level. So yeah, especially cricket in Africa, I feel like it's very underdeveloped. So we have to see, man. We have to see what happens.
Yeah, I know that as a South African, you probably seem to have a bit of a big brother, little brother relationship with Zimbabwe, and several of Zimbabwe's former internationals are now living and in a few cases coaching in South Africa. So, Zimbabwe still has a few problems. And, obviously, Steve, as much as we may have some trouble trying to move on, at least we can be thankful that we're not in Zimbabwe's shoes, eh?
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's right, mate. And I feel what a great side at one stage Zimbabwe had. We all remember the likes of Eddie Brandis, the chicken farmer, and the Heath Street, and the Flower Brothers, and all that.
Yeah, Lord rest his soul, Heath Street, by the way, passed away not too long ago due to cancer.
Oh, really? I didn't know. Oh,
poor chap.
He can't have been very old. I think he must have been around 50 odd or something like that.
49.
Cool.
Yeah. Poor bloke.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Manny, Ollie has to go now. So.
Yeah, Ollie's got to go.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for informing me. So we will put you in the spotlight and just shout out your socials, and do please be quick, son.
Yeah, I will be. Yeah, so I've got a stream in a minute. It's going to be a bit late because I'm going to wait. I might go live without Hanno and Mr. B, but I'm not expecting too many people. So if I'll wait for at least one guest to join. I think Harry's joining. He said he's going to be a little bit late, but I'll maybe wait for till he joins, and then we can wait for Hanno and Mr. B. But yeah, so catch one of the other channels here: Coach's Corner, or S Talks Football, Delby Gunner TV, True Gooner, Mystery Hives Football Chat, Mystery Hives Chats England, Mr. B Chats England Cricket. Yeah, a few other channels as well, Waffle TV as well. But if you want to catch on my channel, Dish and Clara, I'm doing a stream about now, starting very soon. Football Bingo. I just thought I was going to do a video about me taking a break because I'm quite busy at the moment. But instead I thought, go into a break with a bit of fun, bit of football bingo. So yeah, I'll be announcing as well. But yeah, go check it out. Subscribe to Dish and Clara as well, and like the stream and stuff like that. Ollie Dotson Get 556 on Instagram. Diver fan page on Instagram as well. Ollie's over 556 on TikTok. Dish and Clara 556 on Mixcloud. There will be mixes back very soon. The possibly no mix tomorrow because I still need a charger, but for my laptop. But yeah, there will be mixes when I get that a charger. X and SoundCloud, DJ Sinclair, and then Xbox, PlayStation, Snapchat, PC Post Meet Dem for that. Big up Mr. B, big up Manny and Hannah as well, and big up the chat as well. Yeah, just go. Obviously, you can continue watching this, and I'll go over to my stream, or we can go over to my stream now. Just go to my channel, and I'll be starting in a second. But yeah, big up, guys, for having me on, and see you soon.
Cheers, Ollie. Take care of yourself. Yeah.
Thanks
a lot for coming.
See you soon, mate.
See you soon, guys.
Okay, and before we wrap up as well, we do actually have one more topic that we would like to discuss, of course, at Hannah's request, and that is the upcoming Women's Asia Cup. Some big clashes, of course, and the big question is, will India reign supreme? And the thing about this Asian Cup, as you and I can talk about, Steve, and I'll come to you, is that with the exception of India, there aren't too many teams in the Asian continent that can really consistently launch a challenge. I know that Sri Lanka recently did pretty well against the West Indies under the captaincy of Chamari Athapathu. And it's really good to see more and more players stepping up and helping the skipper. And that's what you want to see. You don't want to see the skipper having to do everything. A little bit like how Lionel Messi used to do everything for Argentina. And now he's got a much better team behind him. And look what he's won. 2 Copa Americas, a Finalissima, and a World Cup. I think he'll stay on for the World Cup qualification process and the tournament, but he'll probably end up accepting a bench role. But that's besides the story. 8 teams expected to play in the tournament. And Group A will see India grouped with Pakistan, the UAE, and Nepal. And Group B will see Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, the hosts, grouped with the Maldives and Thailand. So, some very unheralded names there, along with some of the bigger names. And I think it's fair to say, effectively, that, so there will be some teams that will be expected to go through. And once we take a look at the, in fact, I've got the schedule over here, but I'm going to just sort of focus on the latter stages, because it's expected, of course, that if 2 teams are to qualify from each group, then it should really be India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, because some of the other teams really can't, can't have too much expected from them. And of course, once the group stage matches all finish, it will, of course, be in Dambulla in Sri Lanka. Every single game taking place in only one city. But there'll be the semi-finals and the final to be concluded at the end of the month. So, yeah. Hold on. And now my internet seems to be running a little bit slowly. Hold on. Now I got it. Yeah. So as I said, we have the 8 teams. We have the 8 teams split into 2 groups, the semi-finals and the final. So it's hard not to look beyond the likes of Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and India qualifying. I just think that Nepal, the UAE, Malaysia. Oh, it's not the Maldives, it's Malaysia, in fact. So I got that wrong. But but it does promise to be a little bit exciting for some of these nations who will be in the tournament. But you really can't look beyond India winning it all, can you?
No, unless there's a team that emerges like a USA in the men's, an unfancied sort of team that. We don't know a lot about these others, do we? I mean, they might have some good players, some of them, Some of these other lot, Malaysians or UAE or whatever. They might have some Thailand and all that. So, you never know.
Absolutely. And the bigger nations obviously, play the other test-playing nations on a more regular basis. So you have to think that they will have a lot more in terms of exposure and practice, and they've just got the bigger talent pool. And it looks as though Hanno is away from the keyboard for now. Hopefully we can wait for him. But, obviously we wanted to touch on that, and I think we pretty much covered all of the big headlines in the cricketing world. But while we wait for him, obviously you and I are absolutely fit to be tied about the selection for the men's test. But the test, of course, will be starting tomorrow at, I want to say, 11 a.m. Local time from Trent Bridge. And are you confident enough to make a prediction? And it is, in fact, a 3-test series, so we have the opportunity to seal this. The third test, of course, will be at Edgbaston from the 26th of July onwards.
Yeah, to be honest, my friend, I just think it's. I just hate what they've done here, England. But I think, I mean, the thing is, we know what Wood and all that's got. We know, and Wokes, we know what they can do. And they're just wasting this opportunity of bringing these youngsters through. Pennington, who I'm sure was waiting and chomping at the bit to get his debut and start playing for England. And now that's been put on the back burner. He's been thrown, to the back of the room for the time being, and thinking, well, when am I going to play? Am I going to get a game? Because I wouldn't be surprised if they probably play him in the last one. But I just feel, well, why? This doesn't make sense that they brought Wood back. It just doesn't make sense.
Though. Go ahead.
No, what I was just trying to say, man, you try and see what other players can do. We know what Wood's capable of, and he hasn't been actually producing it either at the moment. So, what was the point of him bringing it? Why was they going to bring him back? What's he going to do? What's he going to achieve at the end of the day? Probably thinking, we'll probably win, but I mean, he's got all that pace, and to disturb the West Indies. But we still want to know what these other bowlers can do, and we won't get to know until maybe the last one. I don't know.
Maybe there's a part of me that thinks that England will just want to secure the series, and then if we win that, we'll win the series. And so the last test, we'll see some of the youngsters brought in. But for predictions, are you predicting an England win?
Probably, yeah. I didn't see a lot from the West Indies in that first test. I mean, they had terrible preparation. Don't forget, we know what happened there with the hurricane and everything else. So it's horrible for them. But I just don't think they got enough at the moment. They got some decent talent there. So that new guy looks good. What was his name again? The new guy,
Mikhail Lewis.
Louis. Sorry. Yeah, he looked quite good. I thought he's got a bit of talent there. So I think that'd be good to see if they bring him on, carry on, and they still got some decent players. Moti's good, spinner quality. Spinner and of course Brathwaite and all that, and they've got some others there. But at the moment, obviously I don't think their mind's on it, and their preparation's been terrible. So I think 2-0. So could be 3, but for the moment I think they will win the second one, England.
Yeah. So I'm confident basically of a 60 run or 7-wicket win. An innings defeat might have sounded a bit harsh, but I just don't know if the West Indies can recover from that really. And Hanno, at your request, we were dealing with the Asian Cup. 8 teams playing: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the host Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Thailand, Nepal, and the UAE. India should win this at a canter, you think?
Yeah, no, India winning this tournament. Just like interesting to see like all these different nations like Thailand, Malaysia, UAE, Nepal, because you don't see them, like you don't hear of them playing cricket. Not even mentioning women's cricket. So now, and India should win this. If they don't win this, then they had a shocker of a tournament. So yeah,
yeah, I agree with Hanno.
And then
sorry, Hanno.
Go on.
No, I said I was just going to agree with you there, mate. And they must win it, India. I don't know who's really going to challenge them. Maybe Pakistan, maybe. I don't know.
The Pakistan are probably
Sri Lanka are better. The women are better than the men, I think. Sri Lanka. So You never know.
Yep, absolutely. And it could very well be that once the finalists are decided, then we will see some really, really good cricket. But, cricket is a funny old game. Maybe there will be some shocks. You just never know. But obviously now we've just covered everything, and we have now come more or less to the end. And it's been a good discussion, a good stream. I'm really happy that we've gone through with it. So, Mr. B, do please shout yourself out. Tell us about your socials, where we can find you, and what you do have coming up.
Yeah, sure, mate. Mr. B for Life 182, Mr. B chats England cricket, and Mr. B Hive Football Chat. So obviously got quite a bit coming up. I've got obviously going to do reviews and stuff for the cricket. I was planning on doing a actual watch along with the women, but I don't know if I will now. Possibly, I'm not sure yet. I ain't made my mind up, but I might do because I kept saying I was going to do one, didn't I? But I never got around to it. With everything else, with the football, of course, as we know, with the Euros, and of course Southgate's gone. Well, hey, yeah, he's gone. Yeah, but at last, So there is plenty of other things coming up. Obviously, I've got to do the B streams. I kept promising that about transfers and which we ain't got any transfers still, unfortunately. But I'm sure there might be one or two eventually, and I'll bring them to you on there at some stage on the streams. And obviously with the football coming back, we know with the new season, so there's a lot to talk about. And of course we've had the tennis, Wimbledon has been great, brilliant from Alcatraz. I call him Alcatraz. I know it's Alcaraz, but just pretty much call him Alcatraz now. And Djokovic couldn't escape from him, so that was it. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming up with the Olympics and everything, of course. So I hope everyone enjoys this year of sport, and hopefully weather's getting better. It's supposed to be 27 apparently by the end of this week, so we could be getting getting a lot of heat back again, hot weather. But anyway, thanks for having me on, guys, and Hanno and Manny. Cheers, fellas, and thanks again. Thanks to everyone in here, and Ollie, of course, earlier on. And thanks to everyone in the live chat, and keep subbing and liking my channel, following my channel. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, man. It seems like Manny has disappeared. I think maybe connection problem. So Wi-Fi, so something like that. I will just wrap it up. You guys know where to find me. Instagram, Hanu_Coach_Corner. Twitter, Hanu70830030, or just type in Hanu_Coach_Corner on Twitter, and TikTok, Coach Corner 1. And of course, make sure to like and subscribe. Yeah, Steve's channel is in the description. I will add Ollie's one right now. Let me do that right now.
Yeah, have you got time to put it all in? I know what he's got, Ollie. it's
no. I just put it in his channel. I just put it in.
Yeah. Don't put every single thing he's got in there. It takes forever.
Take me a year to do that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's like when he has to shout it all out.
Yeah. So as for content, I might do a video. I don't know, on the Enzo Fernandez thing of what he said about the French. It's a very tough topic. My interesting. It's the end of the stream, so you can go.
Yeah.
That's the end. If it was matter of the stream, I will time you up, but it's the end of the stream, so yeah. We'll wrap it up. Cheers, people. Have a good day. Vamos a España. Gareth Southgate is out now. And again for life. 10 again. So yeah, cheers, people.
Bring Klopp in.
10 again. 10 up for England.